All right, thanks. And here I am again, and thank you everyone for tuning in to our session with Amazon. I'm really pleased to be here today with Beatrice and PREM. We're going to have a great discussion, and you know, the title of this session is all sort of hints at the idea of Alexa, of talking to Alexa less. And as a blind person myself, and as someone who's had an Amazon device for so long, I think it's fascinating, the idea of how could talking less be of benefit to a blind and low vision population. So we're going to dive into that. But first, before we get started, I just wanted to allow you both to introduce yourselves and tell me in your own words, you know, sort of cocktail party banter. How do you explain what you do for Amazon? Beatrice?
Yeah, hi, my name is Beatrice GEOFFRIN. Thanks for having us today with you. It's great to be here. So I've been with Amazon for 16 years, and for the last 4 years, I've led the Alexa Trust team. And so that means that the mission of my team is to build the trust that customers have in Alexa. Really, usually when people hear trust, they think about privacy and security, and that's really important and foundational, and that's part of my team as well. But at Amazon, we define trust a bit more broadly than that. We also think about the fact that to build trust with customers, we need to have an experience that's really inclusive and working really well for all customers. And so my team thinks about that as well. How do we make sure that our devices and services work really well for everyone? And so as part of that, we think about how to make Alexa really accessible for everybody, including customers, for example, who are blind or visually impaired. So that's what we do.
Wonderful. And Prem, what do you do and how do you work alongside Beatrice's team?
Yeah, first, thank you for hosting us, Will. Excited to talk about Alexa, always. So I lead a multidisciplinary science and engineering and product team. You know, in a nutshell, the goal of our team is to make human interactions with conversational AI or AI in general as natural as it is with other humans. Right? And one of our kind of North Star visions, if you will, is to make Alexa a multimodal AI assistant who's capable of responding to both spoken language, but also visual context. And by doing that, we then enable a number of user capabilities that people can leverage and use to make their everyday lives that much more easier and less frictionful. And for that, we work closely with Beatrice's team and other such teams across Amazon's devices and services group to deliver those experiences to end users.
Wonderful. I have this very vivid memory from several years ago when I was sort of just getting to know the blindness community myself. And it was right around the time when the first Alexa-enabled devices came out. And I remember installing my Echo and connecting my contacts and looking through to see who else had an Echo that I could call. And I laughed to myself because I realized, you know, it was early on in the release of this amazing new tech, and the only people I knew who had it were all blind or low vision people, right? It was just my blind friends all had it already in their home. And the blind and visually impaired low vision community, we've always been sort of early adopters of tech. But I wonder, you know, Prem, starting with you, like, why was Alexa and those devices that enabled Alexa, why was that such a game changer for the blind and low vision community? Why was that thing in everyone's homes right off the bat?
Yeah, you know, both technologies such as spoken language understanding or image understanding have long been seen as naturally or inherently access-oriented technologies with implications for access. So as you just pointed to, Will, even early on, if you go to your favorite streaming video service and you search, and you'll find a lot of examples of people saying how you know, people who don't have you know, full vision or proper vision or are blind can use these technologies simple things like what is the time right now, or what's the weather outside, or being able to access that without having to go through a tactile interface like your phone or a laptop. Well, absolute game changer, right? Because now you can just speak to your environment, and your environment speaks back to you with the answers that you want. And when voice is your main communication avenue, that's phenomenal. What's today's news? And you hear back, a summary of today's news. What's the traffic to like today, headed to the airport, and it tells you what the congestion is or not. So all of those things just made this natural. Now, the natural question that follows, and maybe we'll talk about it later, is what's the future like? Given that conversational AI is inherently an access-oriented capability, how do we see the future and how do we improve it? And I'd be happy to chat about it a bit, but I'll stop here on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting, when those devices first came out, they were this amazing new way for blind and low vision people to access, but the devices themselves were sort of blind in a sense that they only picked up on audio, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I want to ask you too, Beatrice. So accessibility, part of the Alexa Trust team now, but was that always the case? Was this mass adoption of the devices somewhat expected, or somewhat of a surprise for the Alexa teams?
Yeah, it came very quickly, and we got very quickly feedback from customers about blind or low vision customers or mobile impaired customers. Like, they quickly realized indeed this direct voice experience, how convenient it was for them, how it gives them by voice access basically to a computer and all the capabilities that it unblocks. We set out to build the device as a way for convenience, and so I think they just embrace that convenience even more. The device is convenient for everybody. If you're like me and you're in the kitchen, you're cooking, you're unpacking groceries, you're taking care of kids, your hands are busy, and so the convenience for a hands busy scenario is even more so convenient for people, for example, mobile impaired or low vision. So we saw that, and when we see at Amazon that customers embrace an experience, that gives us the desire to go and double down and see how else we can be useful for that community of customers.
Absolutely.
I think the one thing I would add as well that we've heard from customers is the fact that these speakers are relatively affordable. This is a technology that's fairly cheap, and we've only taken the prices of our devices down. And so something that was maybe the one device you had in the kitchen in the beginning is more and more affordable, and people can now place them. They don't have to choose where to put them in the house. They can place them wherever they would like it to be convenient. So that's also, I think, been helpful in a way to really make a device that actually can be accessed by everybody.
Great point.
But it strikes me that, like, when it came out, it was already just born. Alexa was born so human, so natural. The conversations were so natural, and of course the conversation AI is improving. But PREM, how do we go about? What's the theory behind improving that with the bar already set so high?
Yeah, one of the interesting things, Will, is humans, users, we're natural bar raisers. Anytime something becomes satisfying, we seek to push it more, and then eventually find its limitations, which then becomes the signal for us to say, oh, people want to do this with this technology, so now let's make that possible as well. So it's a very interactive, if you will, kind of development process. I mean, Amazon's customer obsessed culture is very famous. And so anytime we say, oh, our customers are trying to push the product in this direction, we say, okay, what can we do? Now, to frame our forward-looking ideas in this area, I'll say, two key directions. One is what we'll call self-service AI, and the other is self-directed or self-learning. And these are two pillars of what I more generally like to call nowadays as the coming age of self in AI, if you will. The third pillar is self-awareness, for those who are interested. Now, self-service AI is really all about democratization of AI. And the democratization of AI here, we mean like making it equally accessible in some sense to everyone, so that you don't need to have, a computer scientist be the one who tailors the AI to a specific task. More generally, in the engineering community, this is referred to as kind of low code or no code revolution. And in the case of AI, we choose to call it self-service AI. Think of it as us enabling the barista to create an Alexa skill instead of teaching a PhD computer scientist how to brew a latte, right? That's really the spirit behind this push towards self-service. Already, there are many such capabilities available within Alexa beyond what was originally launched as just conversational AI, like you pointed out. One of them I'll call out is routines, which is a team that lives very close to Beatrice. And the routines team makes it easier. And herein is where we'll also point a beacon towards why we talk about speaking less, Will, which is that you want to do a bunch of things with Alexa, but sometimes maybe they're clustered. Like, when you set the morning alarm, maybe after that you want to hear the news, and then after that you want to hear something else. And you have a set routine in the morning. What if you could simply have that be triggered by the event that your alarm went off, and then the next two things happen? So you're speaking less, but it's not like you're getting less. You're getting much more from the AI. The AI is doing more. Another way might be, you say, Alexa, goodbye, indicating that you're leaving your home, and you might program it to say, set the temperature at a certain level so that you're not wasting heat or air conditioning, or turn off the lights, if you're leaving, or turn on the alarm, et cetera, et cetera. Last point I'll make on this is the self-learning piece, which is about trying to make Alexa continuously better once it's out in the field interacting with users. Conceptually, I'll just say, imagine you asked Alexa to play a piece of music, and the playback starts, and you immediately interrupt Alexa. That's usually a pretty strong signal that something didn't quite work out the way you wanted. And that signal turns out to be a super useful signal for us to learn from and say, aha, that was wrong. How can I now improve my response the next time? And the magic is, turns out we can do that entirely without any human intervention and fix all of these defects out in the field on an ongoing basis. Many more examples to share in the rest of this session, Will, but I'll stop there for now.
Yeah, wonderful. I wonder, like, on the topic of, making Alexa more accessible for everyone, there are so many different types of people in the world with so many different types of accessibility needs. And sometimes the accessibility needs conflict with one another and interact with one another. Someone in the family has a need that's different than another. When you're creating the future of Alexa, mapping out the accessibility roadmap, is Amazon going and seeking out as many different types of people as possible to craft the product around the accessibility needs, or is it based more on customer feedback coming in, reading the analytics, reading the signs, and steering it that way? Beatrice, maybe you have some insight on this.
Yeah, it's really both, and it really follows Amazon's way of designing products in general, which is start from the customers and work backwards. And so, that methodology is all about trying to understand what are the customer needs, and then see how those customer needs we could meet them or even exceed them, delight them, using unique capabilities that Amazon as a company or our product has. And so that's our overall philosophy in product development. And we apply it just in the same way for the field of accessibility. You're right, needs are very diverse across all individuals, across different types of accessibility needs, and even within one community. And so it's really important to do the hard work to understand what are the real customer experiences. So we do both. We look at customer contacts and feedback from customers through our customer service, and usage data to see how customers use our products, and anecdotes that we receive. And then we also go and proactively seek out feedback and submit ideas or seek out ideas from the different communities to invent one of our products. If I take the example of the show and tell feature with Alexa. This is a product that we've developed where a blind customer can leverage Alexa in the kitchen to recognize pantry items by showing the product to the camera of the Echo Show, and then Alexa tells the customer what the item is, and it can be really convenient to sort items or know what you're going to use when you cook. And so this is an example of a feature that we've developed with the blind community, because we've heard about some of the complexity of these use cases of identifying items that cannot be distinguished by touch. And we've worked with members of that community. We've also worked with organizations that help us, contact some of these customers. So in that case, we work with the Vista Center for the Blind in Santa Cruz, and they were super helpful also in helping us really put that product in the hands of blind customers and get their real feedback of how that product works. We can talk later about why that's important. But so it's really this hybrid approach about hearing from customers and seeking out, presenting ideas to customers and finding through those two methodologies what resonates, what customers feel is a real need that we can successfully meet.
That's so exciting, and I spend all my days thinking about visual description, right, from humans on Be My Eyes, but the thought that there's so many diverse different use cases that someone might need to describe to them. But I guess if anybody has a database of what that item might be, it's probably Amazon, right? Tell us a little more about show and tell, because I think folks are really going to want to know about this. Where is it available right now? How do you get it up and running? Where can folks find this?
Yeah, so customers who are interested in this feature need to have Echo Show device, which is our Echo device that has a camera and a screen. And then they would just, they don't need to enable anything. They can just take a product from their pantry and present the product in front of the hardware. We have a guiding system and they ask Alexa, what am I holding? Because they don't know what they have in their hand. And then Alexa will guide the customer first to orientate the product so that it's in front of the hardware. And if Alexa sees that there's a product but can't tell where the label is, Alexa might advise the customer to turn the product around so that until Alexa can actually recognize the item. This is where the feedback from real customers was so helpful, because designing that guidance system, there's a sound audio that helps the customer place the item, and designing that really required iteration with real customers giving us feedback on how to make it work really well. And those are the kind of experiences where it's got to work really well to be efficient for customers. If it's going to waste their time, customers are impatient. They have a lot of things to do. They have busy lives again. And so we were super grateful from all the blind customers who helped us build the product so that it was efficient.
That's awesome. And so presumably show and tell would be available in any Alexa product that's camera enabled in the future, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's now part of the one of the many capabilities that Alexa has. And I think you said it right. At Amazon we have a database of products, right? That's how Amazon started, selling products. So we have a lot of knowledge about products, and so we were able again to meet a unique needs with some of our Amazon unique strengths, which was this device that has a camera, which can be seen as the eyes, the Alexa intelligence and the voice, and then the knowledge of Amazon product. You're right, there's a lot of further applicabilities in this world of visual description. We've heard from customers that they would like, for Alexa to be able to tell them the expiration dates, for example, and then you could imagine a number of interesting use cases where then, Alexa could remind you of your expiration dates and so on and so forth. I can't really talk about future-looking roadmap, but the applicability is broad in the kitchen, and then you can think about other places in the house or even outside the house where something similar could be useful. So I think we're just at the beginning of this journey.
No, you're speaking my language. These are the things that I'm thinking about every single day. So I want to double tap on this. So at the beginning, we talked about this, and PREM, you've already given us a few examples, like the no code idea of teaching Alexa a skill or something like that. Again, the title of this session is about talking to Alexa less. Can you go a little deeper into some of these examples of what you mean by a more kind of human, more nuanced Alexa?
Yeah. So I know the title of the session, like you said, can be scary to somebody who's blind, is saying, well, what do you mean Alexa is going to talk less or speak less? The whole value here is that we hear from it. And the intention is for Alexa to continue speaking, but that it should require less from the user to get the right set of information from Alexa. If you look at the trajectory of AI overall, right, we're moving increasingly towards a regime where AI is more context aware. It's more aware of kind of the state of the environment, all of which can make it capable of deriving insights that help you. So maybe it knows, it learns over time, approximately when you leave work, or your set of behaviors when you leave work, and it can automatically turn down the thermostat for you and can turn off the lights maybe for you, right? So that's one example of where it's speaking less, but it's actually providing a lot of value to you. But another example, more closely connected to conversational AI, many of us, we like to use our own ways of referring to it, whether kids or grown adults. And, maybe you want to go and say, Alexa, set my lights to Christmas mode. And, we thought, oh, it would be great if we could ask, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. Can you teach me? And then the user says, yeah, that means, green hue light, or, just making up an example. Or you walk into a room and say, I feel really cold here. And Alexa says, oh, would you like me to raise the temperature? And then you say, yes, can you set the temperature to cozy mode? And then it says, oh, I don't know what cozy mode is. Can you teach me? And you say, yeah, 72 degrees is cozy mode. And then the next time you just say, Alexa, set the temperature to cozy mode. And if you have an Alexa enabled thermostat, it does that. So this is another way of making Alexa more useful and more accessible, in that you're freed from having to remember the ways in which you have to get something done, because you can actually teach Alexa how you like to say how to get something done, right? And so that's another conversational way of teaching. You might go and say, hey, I have a preference for getting for you responding with this kind of answer when I ask you this kind of question. And those are all things that this teachable, what we call teachable AI, allows people to personalize Alexa to themselves. Looking out into the future, as Beatrice said, we don't talk about our future roadmap or specific launch plans, but you can imagine a combination of things where, wouldn't it be great if you walk into a room and the AI knows that the room is cold for you, and it senses human presence in the room and then can adjust the temperature automatically. And that goes towards the spirit of speaking less and doing more.
Yeah, and I also imagine, when it comes to accounting for different speech patterns, like you're really addressing the needs of not only children but adults as they age, which, as we know, has a huge overlap with blind and low vision community. And so
Indeed.
If we're helping more people as they age use Alexa more effectively, we're helping more blind and low vision individuals, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
And so, Beatrice may have some things to talk about on adaptive listening and speaking. So I'll kind of hand it over to her to talk about a few of those features that are more, tuned towards this customer experience being accessibility oriented.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about actually our aging customer segment as well. I think this is also, similarly, we've seen great feedback from aging customers or their caregivers about how Alexa is again, directly accessible for them. They might not want to learn a new technology, but they've been speaking their whole life. And so for them, using Alexa is very natural. And yet there are things that we can do to make the experience even better. And so, we have launched features. Actually, it's a feature that might be interesting for all of your audience. We've launched a feature where you can set Alexa to speak faster or slower, depending on what your personal preference is. And we've seen it, for example, use that feature. We've seen it, aging customers enjoy having Alexa speak a little bit slower. It helps them, make sure that they understand better what Alexa says back. We've actually heard from some blind customers that they enjoy Alexa speaking a little bit faster because they are used to faster speed rate of listening from some of the other experiences that they use. And so that's an interesting feature. Right now, it's a setting. You have to go in the Alexa app and decide for your device what speaking rate you would like Alexa to speak. As PREM described, I think our vision for the future is to have Alexa even more natural. And so, could you imagine a world where Alexa knows and adapts the speaking rate used depending on the understanding of what customers prefer, and then kind of like adapt that to the user.
Wow, and just know what the user wants to hear. Yeah.
Or know or even learn dynamically through a conversation. We are not static, as we know, humans are not static in our attributes. We like to mix it up. Sometimes we're reflective, other times we're all about speed. So
tired, or how you're different in the morning or at night or something like that.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I like this this sort of, imagine a world where, thought experiment. And so without revealing anything about the product roadmap, what can we imagine a world where Alexa could truly rise to meet the needs of a blind or low vision person? Where is this all sort of going in each of your vision of what you do?
I think we've touched on a number of things already, but I would say, this concept of maybe describing the world, helping blind customers, know what's around them, and in situations where that's particularly useful to them. I think this is again a place where Alexa, with a camera, a brain, I call it the AI, and a voice, could play a role. I think this concept of just having to do less, the customer should not have to pull up the app and do things in the app. We know that's doable but not convenient for a blind customer. So I really like when PREM talks about teachable Alexa, because that's almost programming Alexa or creating settings on Alexa by voice. Like you just use your voice to go and get Alexa to teach Alexa to do things for you. So that concept of doing more again by voice, so that Alexa understands you and adapts and anticipates sometimes even things that the customer would have to otherwise go and do.
And maybe on the AI side, to complement what Beatrice just said on the experience side, I can add, like, if we imagine a world, this is kind of the world we like to imagine, of ambient intelligence, where it's not so much about the individual pieces of hardware, about the individual products, but it's about how they come together along with the intelligence that they embody to create a fabric of intelligence around us that responds to us as we move through this ambient environment, etc. So when we think about it that way, you can imagine the AI completing tasks on your behalf. Maybe in order for it to do that, you need to have agents that can talk to each other. So we imagine a interoperable voice environment where voice agents talk with each other and maybe they complete tasks for you. We imagine an ambient intelligence where all of these products and services are available for you, they respond to you, they are responsive to you when you need them to be, but then they kind of recede into the background and they're kind of just there latently waiting to help you when you need them. They're personal, they're proactive, they're able to learn insights over time that tell them exactly when something is useful to be done, etc. So when, from the AI perspective, that's kind of the world we imagine. And in a way, we're making tangible progress towards that world, right? I mean, with whether it's just right now, some products talking to each other, like you can have your smart home instrumented so that it's all accessible through Alexa if you have smart blinds and your door lock, etc. But that's the world we imagine.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been thinking of trying to wrap my head around this idea of what an ambient AI means, and it almost contradicts this idea of a very human AI, right? We think of Alexa has just become this person in our lives, but ambient is sort of moving away from being a person and into being a more intelligent environment. Is that putting it correctly, Prem?
In a way, though, if you think about it, Beatrice's team talks about the North Star vision for Alexa about, ubiquitous assistant, right? It's always, kind of assisting us in completing our mission or the tasks at hand. So yeah, you're right. What you're basically alluding to, Will, is the fact that this sounds like it's beyond human. When we talk about human, we're talking about the naturalness of the interaction, about the kind of ability to understand us, like our other humans might understand each other. Not so much about the fact that you can ask it to lock a network connected door and it can, right? That is clearly the role of technology. And so this is really about naturalness connected with the power of technology to make things easier.
And Beatrice, anything to add on that sort of North Star vision of what Alexa could do for people with disabilities?
Yeah, I think this concept of disappearing in the background and being there, doing things on behalf, removing some of the work from the customer side is what we're striving for. Like, how do we double down, making each piece of the experience a little bit less work on the customer. Maybe it's a very small example and baby step towards that direction, but we launched yesterday a new feature called conversation mode, where you can bring Alexa into the conversation if you are with someone in front of a device and are trying to get some information. So a typical example would be that you are with a friend in front of an Echo device and you want to decide where to go for dinner. And so you are looking for suggestions for restaurants, and you can say, Alexa, join in the conversation. And now you can talk to your friend about where you want to go for dinner, and sometimes ask Alexa a question without having to every time say Alexa. You can, because Alexa has joined the conversation, so at that point of time, you can just ask the question to Alexa, and Alexa will understand that that question is directed to the device and will answer. And so it's a small example about making it just a slightly bit easier for the user to get access to the information they want, because they don't have to like wake up the device and say Alexa every time. And then once you've picked the restaurant that you want to go to, Alexa is off the conversation and you're back to the normal mode. But again, it's a baby step, I think, but it's just a concrete example of a baby step of what we mean by removing the friction, making all these interactions more natural and easier. And all of these small friction that we remove are just so many seconds that we give back to the customer to do the other things that they want to do, which is, interact with the people around them and live their busy lives.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting launching point, actually, because I like the introduction of the conversation mode into the discussion, where it actually ties well with the ambient concept, which is it's actually bringing spoken language context and visual context to make it a much more natural and friction-free experience for the user to interact with Alexa in a multi-turn session. Alexa always could handle multi-turn context across sessions. You ask, what's the temperature? What's the weather like today? And then it says this thing, and then you say, what's it like in Boston? And it knows that you're asking about the weather in Boston today. So that kind of context across turns. But this conversation mode that Beatrice just talked about is just raising the bar, to use your phrase, Will, early on. How are we constantly raising the bar? So this raises the bar on naturalness of interaction, where multiple parties can be part of the interaction with Alexa, and Alexa knows its place in the conversation and when it's appropriate for it to speak.
I love that. And you know, a final thought, when assistive technology devices started being created, just like computers, they were big and bulky, and blind and low vision people who are older than I am will remember walking around with these big backpacks on of all these different devices, walking around with these big backpacks on, you know, and it's over the years, it's gotten smaller and smaller and more compact and easier to take with you. And then it made its way into our mainstream devices. And what I'm seeing here is the idea of it becoming invisible. And I like that idea. That's an idea that I can get behind. So so thank you both for joining me and for coming to SciTech Global and supporting SciTech Global and the Vista Center. And if you have any final thoughts, I'd love for you to share them.
Well, thanks for having us. I would say, you know, we love delighting our customers, and we also love when our customers have, you know, are not delighted and, you know, are vocal about their needs. And, you know, the blind community is great to do that. So we love feedback and anecdotes. You know, we want to hear from our customers what they want to see next. And so, you know, Will, if you have ideas for us, or if your audience has ideas for us, you know, we really want to get, you know, work from our customers and work backwards, like work from the needs that we can meet and see how we can delight customers.
We're good at feedback. What if we have feedback, where do we go? How do we share that feedback?
You know, contacting Amazon customer service, always, if you do that, the feedback always finds its way back to the product team. That's part of our mechanisms. So that would be a great way.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful.
Just underline what Beatrice said. I think she summarized it perfectly. I think great to have participated in this forum with the two of you, Will and Beatrice. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you for the opportunity. And yes, please do let us know what we can do better. And also, if you feel like it, what's really working well for you, so we can kind of take that as inspiration.
No one was ever mad at a little bit of positive feedback, that's for sure. Well, thank you both, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. Thanks so much again for joining us.
Thank you.